We're looking at a painting at the Museum of Modern Art by Ernst Ludwig Kirchner. It's Street Scene Dresden, and it dates to 1908.
And Kirchner's known as an expressionist artist, right? That's his
He would become
classification.
part of a group called
Yes.
De Brücke,
Yeah,
right?
the bridge.
The bridge.
The
is,
bridge.
Right, as they call themselves.
What did the bridge mean? What was it a bridge to and from? From the past to the future?
Well, yes, from the past to the future, but it refers really directly to Nietzsche.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes,
I didn't know that
you
either.
did not?
Oh, that makes it much more interesting.
Thus spake Zarathustra, right? So the bridge from civilization to the Übermensch. Crossing the bridge, it's a journey of self-discovery, of individual self-actualization.
There were so many German artists and craftsmen and that were really interested in Nietzsche at this moment, right?
Obsessed is a better word.
Yeah.
What was
Really,
it
really
about
good.
Nietzsche?
Well, he was interested in taking apart ideas of morality, which constricted culture so much, I think, all over Europe, but especially in Germany. I think the young artists, I think Kirchner was not even 30 at this point. They're all pretty young, and they're really interested in sort of renewal and the new and...
Germany was late in coming to the Industrial Revolution, right? So there's a lot of change that's happening in a very compressed sort of time period.
They, in the later 19th century, really tried to catch up to England and France, and they worked really hard to do that. And then there was a lot of growth really fast. But there are all these cultural mores that they worked really hard to break out of. And Nietzsche was totally influential and inspirational because he posited all of these ways of sort of breaking out of
And
those
really
very
holding
constrictive,
the individual alone
proper,
accountable for...
Yeah, so that you wouldn't be proper and contained.
And even in this painting, there is a kind of isolation amongst those figures, isn't there?
Definitely.
Even though it's a crowded, sort of really dense scene that's, I mean, this is a pretty wild painting, really.
I mean, I have to say, I know that you like this painting.
I do, I love this painting.
And I have always really not...
I
I
love this painting.
So,
All right, so I want to hear from both of you then.
Why do you not like this painting?
you know, I feel it feels very like a man looking at women on the street, and I know that I don't know, I guess for me, it doesn't build all that much more on the 19th century. On like Munch's street scene, Karl Johann Strasse.
Right, from 1892.
And so, you know, that kind of interest in psychological angst and alienation in the modern world, and a kind of, you know, using color to describe those things and brushwork. You know, this I really, as a symbolist artist, I really like this.
And so did the Germans, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they really heroized
But then
him,
when
right?
we get to this, and the colors become more garish and more difficult, the composition a little bit more disjointed, the brushwork more open, I'm not sure how much this adds. And I guess there's something uncomfortable to me about the way that he's looking at the women here.
For me, the color and the garishness is what attracted me to it. I love the distortion. I love the green. I love the orange. I love the orange tracing around the woman's hat. It's glowing. I just love looking at that. I feel like it's neon. If you look again at the entire composition, I love things that kind of pop out at different moments. I think it is about looking, and it is about voyeurism, and it is about the male gaze. If you look on the right side of the painting, I love that he's cut halfway out of the composition.
Because Degas did that in 1872.
I think for me, this sort of feels very much about isolation and German angst.
You know, the point you were making about Degas, I thought was an interesting one, because in some ways, France is going through those issues, you know, when Degas is painting, and Germany's a little bit later.
I see.
But that doesn't make this not authentic, right? And an authentic expression of that moment. I'm not saying that they're the same thing, but the issue of sort of industrial alienation and the issue of urban alienation, I think, are both very important issues in both of those painters' work. But this is clearly a 20th century work. I mean, there are lessons that have learned and freedoms that have been generated from post-impressionism and from other artists that are taken to
fauvism.
Exactly.
Like just the coloration, I think, for me is something that makes it extremely like early 20th century.
But it's not the sort of the beauty of fauvism.
No, it's not.
This is really a kind of sort of aggressive.
It's very. I like that.
So Van Gogh's, you know, the Night Cafe said, you know, He wanted to, give the night cafe a sense of darkness and misery by means of red and green. That's what Van Gogh said 20 or 30 years before this, and uses, he's got that horrible pink color in that painting.
So maybe the power here is the very thing that you don't like, which is the women as subject, right?
Well, I know that he's doing images of prostitutes on the street, right? And I guess that knowing that informs my looking at this painting. It starts to make me really worried about the way that modern historians look at these images.
I think that because I think of his prostitute, the streetwalker scenes as 5 years later.
Those are in Berlin,
He's
right?
in Berlin, and they're in like Potsdamer Platz and Friedrichstraße. There's main city centers, and where the women are that's a lot more strident, and the women are definitely the focus of the male gaze, and there are a lot of men kind of circling around the women. Those are less interesting to me also, I think, just even in terms of looking at the color and the composition for some reason, and I know that a lot of people like those more, and his style is more developed and he's more mature as an artist. I like that this is more raw. To Kirchner, he's really focusing on that authentic kind of direct engagement with like the experience of the city, the electric, the movement.
A kind of constant shift and change here, as if all of those voids, that sort of wonderful sort of pink area, is constantly changing and shifting as the figures that define that space move, right?
I feel like he's experimenting with something.
Could we see the women here as sympathetic in some way? Maybe if I wasn't reading it through the guise of those later images of prostitutes on the street. I mean, she is, she does look out at us, she's lit by the lights of the city. When you said neon, I could sort of feel those kinds of lights maybe in the dusk in the city. Yeah. And she looks out at us and
well, they don't look to me honestly like prostitutes.
Right. No,
like
I'm saying that they're bourgeois women, but maybe there is something sympathetic about her if we don't look at her through the lens of those later images.
I think that there is. I mean, I guess to me it just seems like these isolated figures, and that's what attracts them to me. Like it's a theater. If you look at the side, there's almost like a pillar figure of that male figure kind of holding the picture together, and it pulls your eye in, and he's right there, and he's sort of between you and the female figures, and then everything kind of recedes behind that diagonally to the left in the back. So you see the girl kind of in the center stage, and then the woman who's turned away. I just feel like the lighting. And the way that the figures are arranged.
That could almost be limelight coming in from below. What I love about it is, although it's a city, and you have the slightest trace of the trolley track, there's no architecture. The entire space is defined by the occupation of these figures, and or their occupation in space, and in a sense, it's the city defined by these people, defined by in space itself, shaped by the sort of changing crowd, which I think is really an interesting idea. He's not using buildings. He's not really even using intersections. He's using people to define
what's going on,
the space, and in a sense to build a city out of the people who are
of the shifting masses.
This is Königstraße in Dresden, which is a main thoroughfare of shopping. So there's a lot of traffic and movement, and this is definitely part of a very well-known street in a very well-known area, and it's very populated.
In the late 20, in the second half of the 19th century, when artists painted street scenes like Degas, because this looks to me like he's looking at Degas, but that there is more of a sense of architecture and place.
Yeah. There's nothing here that's stable. Everything here will be different in a moment, and there's something sort of wonderful about that.
Yeah. I think I like looking also at just that little girl and her big hat and her ugly kind of claw-like hand. I think she's holding some kind of toy.
Or flowers, maybe?
Or flowers or something. But in the painting, it really looks scary.
Yeah. There's also the way that her legs are slightly splayed, and there's something very ungainly.
Her hair is kind of dripping down the sides of her face.
Kind of inelegant, And actually, throughout the entire painting, there's this really interesting tension between the sort of the effort at elegance in the dress, but then the ungainliness or the sort of the aggression of the representation. So there's this sort of wonderful sort of back and forth.